Before getting started with any kind of fitness testing, it's really important that we start with fitness screening. One of the parts of that would be the PAR-Q form and the consent form, but here we'll just move on and assume that Clara's filled those out, and we're going to start with her resting heart rate. So you'll notice that she's sitting upright, her back is against the back of the seat, and very important is that her feet are flat on the ground. If her feet weren't long enough to reach the floor, you could always prop them up with some kind of foam roller or anything else you might have lying around. But it's really important that those feet are fully supported so she's not on her heels or on her toes or the legs aren't crossed, but both feet are flat. There are two ways that we can take the resting heart rate. The first is by palpation and the second is by auscultation. It's up to you which one you'd like to do. I'll start by demonstrating palpation and then we'll go and demonstrate the auscultation fashion as well. Both methods at rest are 15-second counts. Your first beat will be on 0. And so for example, if we have the heart rate at this rhythm, you will start your stopwatch on a beat and that counts as the 0 beat and you'll start counting up from there. Once you have your number, you'll multiply it by 4 and that'll represent the resting heart rate per minute. For palpation, you'll notice that I'm on the outside of Clarissa's body. And so I'm going to be palpating for the radial artery, typically noted right at the edge of the wrist. Oftentimes students try to reach across the wrist this way and you'll find it's much harder to feel the pulse here and that's no longer the radial artery. So this is the location we want to be at. You'll see him almost on the edge of her wrist right here. So you'll want to find the pulse, and once you have that pulse you'll notice Clarissa's just resting. You tell the client to relax. I'm going to look at my watch and I'll do a 15-second count. A cell phone stopwatch or another stopwatch would also be acceptable, but I do recommend a watch that has a counter on it. It just makes your life a bit easier. And so I'll do a 15-second count. And Clarissa is well below the cutoff of 99 beats per minute, so that means that she's passed this portion of the screening test and she could then proceed to fitness testing. If I wanted to do auscultation using a stethoscope, there are a couple of things you need to note. First of all, depending on the stethoscope that you're using, you might have a bell in the back. So you'll notice there's two sides to the stethoscope that we'll be using. We'll be using this side to measure Clarissa's heart rate. However, you have to make sure that the hole in the back here is closed. When I twist this end, you can see I can open and close that hole. If this is open, it means that this side really won't be receiving sound and you'll have a really hard time hearing the heart rate. So you'll want to double check, make sure that's closed before you proceed with the test. The other thing you'll need to note is the orientation of the arms of the stethoscope, the hearing pieces. So right now you'll see they're bent on a bit of an angle. If they're not, you could bend them into position. There's not a problem with that. The reason we want this angle is because the ear canals actually go in orientation towards the front of the face, the anterior side of the face, towards the nose. And so we want to make sure that these are in alignment with that to make the hearing clearer and easier. And so once I've got that angle placed and I know that the hole is closed on the bell of the stethoscope, I could then place the stethoscope in my ears. When the stethoscope is in your ears, please be very mindful of what's happening to the bell. It should always be in your hand, because if this were to hit my belt buckle, my pant, a desk, anything like that, it could really cause some hearing damage and a lot of pain in your ears. They're very sensitive instruments. So once you're done your test, as soon as you're done taking that measurement, the first thing I recommend is removing these from your ears just in case this gets dropped. It'll save your ears from having that damage. Once this has taken place, I would just place the stethoscope right here near the xiphoid process or the breastplate. Depending on your subject, you may have to try a couple of different areas. You could also try from underneath as well, but this would also be a 15-second count with my client relaxed. And then from then on, I could decide whether or not the screening procedure would be complete. So the resting heart rate is really an indication of whether or not her heart is working extremely hard at rest. And so the faster the heart is beating is typically an indication of the heart of the body is working, which is why we wouldn't want to try and test somebody who is above 99 beats per minute at rest.